Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Arundhati Ramanan and these are the top headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. Sensex and Nifty regain half of yesterday's losses, gaining over 0.5% each. Midcaps outperform. Rupee holds steady against the dollar. Respondents to a CNBC flash Fed survey dial back inflation and recession concerns on the back of easing USA-China trade tensions, but policy uncertainty continues to remain high. Over 80% of the forecasters, which include economists and fund managers, remain uncertain about the tariff outlook. Elon Musk commits to leading Tesla for the next 5 years, but says he wants more control of the company, similar to Larry Page and Sergey Brin at Google and Zuckerberg at Facebook. Also promises to spend less on political donations after spending over $250 million to help the Trump campaign. That's a CNBC exclusive.
I think it's the right time. I think the business is in a good place, the org is in a good place, the sector is in a good place.
This is the right time to list and India is the right market, says the top management at Walmart-owned fintech company Phonepay. Promises more diversification and profitability in the years to come. That's an exclusive. The government begins its diplomatic outreach to take India's stance on terror to the world. 2 of the 7 all-party delegations begin their campaign today. The delegations will focus on highlighting that Pakistan has sponsored multiple terror attacks on India since 2008. We'll explain why India had to suspend the Indus Waters Treaty. Former U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton says India has an inherent and legitimate right to self-defense after Pahalgam attacks, adds that the United States must work towards ending Pakistan's cycle of terror. A former Trump aide turned critic, Bolton says the presence of prototypes of Chinese 5th-generation fighters in Pakistan during the recent conflict is a bigger worry. That's another exclusive. India moves to fast-track trade deal negotiations with the European Union. Sources say India's chief negotiator heads to Brussels to discuss an early harvest agreement similar to the one with Australia. Supreme Court grants interim bail to Ashok University professor Ali Khan Mudabad, who was arrested for a social media post on Operation Sindoor, but the Apex Court terms his post dog whistling and orders a special investigation team to probe the matter.
This moment feels like 1,000 fire files lighting up a single sky, brief, brilliant, and utterly collective.
India's Banu Mushtaq creates history, becomes the first author writing in the Kannada language to win the International Booker Prize for her book Heart Lamp. She shares the honor with translator Deepa Bhasti. Those were the headlines that we're tracking for you this evening, but straight to the day's market action. The market regained half of yesterday's losses. Nifty reclaimed the 24,800 mark, while the Sensex ended the day above 81,600. Nigel D'Souza joins us now with the day's market action. Nigel, a good day for the markets there?
Well, it was a pretty good trading session for the bulls today. The Nifty went home with gains of around 130 points. The Nifty Bank, well, that pulled back as well. And technical as well, it conquered that 20 DMA. The problem was that the volatility index perked up a little bit on the day that the Nifty went up. That's normally some kind of sign of caution, but that's more to do, I think, with the global environment because you don't know what's going to go on with the globe next. So that's a bit of an issue. But in terms of indices that did well in today's trading session, you had Realty as well as Pharma, both those 2 indices, the top gainers in trade today. From the Nifty pack itself, you had BEL. Stock was bursting away. Remember, it's seen a good rally in the recent past. Now the street is optimistic that they can garner some more orders. So that's why that was the top gainer. You had Cipla as well from the pharma pack that was participating on the upside. But your portfolio will be feeling good today because the number of stocks that were advancing were more than the number of stocks declining. And that's always a good sign. And there were plenty of big winners from the broader markets. JK Tyres came out with the weakest set of numbers, but they're promising better times. So she liked it. That stock was up. Dredging Corp as well was up more than 10% in today's trading session. And Gland Pharma as well, a bit of a softer set of number, but the street is looking ahead. So that's why that one was up close to around 4%. Tejas Networks, the stock got slammed because of lack of order wins. Well, they won an order today of around 1,500 crores and the street liked that. However, weak numbers are getting punished. Fineotex Chemicals, the stock was down from the broader markets. You had Sangvi Movers as well. That one as well did get hit today, down more than 5% in trade. So the street clearly is differentiating between strong as well as weak numbers. Though on the headline index, you have the Nifty that seems to be in a bit of a broad band. On the downside, 24,500, which is the 20 DMA. On the upside, we need to decisively conquer the 25,000 odd mark, which will give the bulls further ammunition. And the Nifty bank as well needs to get past that 56,000 odd mark that's been rejected the last few times. So let's see how it goes. But for today, it was a good session.
Right, Nigel. Many thanks for those details. Now, easing trade tensions between Washington and Beijing has lowered inflation and recession worries in the United States. Respondents to a CNBC Flash Fed survey have dialed down their recession and inflation outlook. However, policy uncertainty continues to remain high. Over 80% of the respondents, which include economists and fund managers, remain cautious about the tariff outlook. Onto a CNBC exclusive, Tesla CEO Elon Musk has committed to leading Tesla for the next 5 years. However, he added that he wants more control of the company, citing Larry Page and Sergey Brin at Google and Zuckerberg at Facebook as examples. Musk also promised to spend less on political donations, this after spending over $250 million to help US President Trump's campaign. In an exclusive interview with CNBC, Musk also spoke about driverless cars and humanoid robots. Take a look.
I mean, really just enough control to not get ousted by activist investors at some point in the future.
Yeah.
So that's what I've said is like something.
You've said that before.
Yeah, no, I've said there's nothing new, which is that around the sort of 25% level, you know, that means I can certainly be thrown out if I go crazy.
Right.
But it really requires, you know, a lot, you know, like. That's the number that I feel comfortable at, because that's where I have some control, but not so much control that I can't be thrown out. We have cars driving 24/7 with drivers in the cars, and we see essentially no interventions. So we want to be very careful with the first introduction of unsupervised full self-driving, meaning that the car's driving around with no one in it. We want to deliberately take it slow. I mean, we could start with 1,000 or 10,000 on day one, but I don't think that would be prudent. So we'll start with probably 10 for a week, then increase it to 20, 30, 40. And I think by, say, you know, we'll probably be at 1,000 within a few months. Mm-hmm. And then we'll expand to other cities, so expand to San Francisco, California, Los Angeles.
India's all-party parliamentary delegation, comprising of 7 teams and 45 MPs, have left for foreign nations to expose Pakistan's role in sponsoring terror attacks against India. The delegations will visit 30 nations to engage with foreign leaders and think tanks. The MPs are expected to highlight the role of the terrorists in the Pahalgam attack and will urge the international community to take action against Pakistan. Speaking to CNBC TV 18, John Bolton, the former US National Security Advisor, said that it is important for India to show that this was a terror attack emanating from Pakistan's soil. He added that the United States must spend more time talking to Pakistan about terror groups on its soil. Take a look.
This is a problem that we simply cannot live with, and it's why India's responses clearly constitute legitimate self-defense. I just say I think it's important to get the kinds of information that you've just described, get it out into the world press, make sure that the case that India can make, should make, is important to provide legitimacy for the steps it takes militarily. So I think in future discussions, it's worth getting the ground rules straight with President Trump at the beginning. I think the fact he made a call, that Vice President Vance and Secretary of State Rubio made calls trying to be helpful was a good thing. I don't want to discourage it, but I think he needs to understand how sensitive this is on both sides, and that in some cases, what goes on quietly out of the spotlight is a lot more important than what happens in the glare of the spotlights.
And you can catch the entire conversation with John Bolton at 5 and 9:30 p.m. right here on CNBC TV 18. It's the third and final day of Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal's visit to the United States. Goyal has held meetings with Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer. Parikshit Luthra is here with more of those details. Parikshit, how are the negotiations progressing?
India and US trade talks have been positive over the last 3 days. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, who is in Washington, D.C., has not only had official meetings with top U.S. government officials, but also dinner meetings with U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer and U.S. Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick. Sources familiar with ongoing negotiations say that it is quite likely that India and U.S. will be able to sign an early trade deal by July. U.S. had imposed a pause on reciprocal tariffs on India and other nations till the 9th of July. Sources say the US may not impose the 26% reciprocal tariff on India in case a first phase trade deal is done before July, but there is no official confirmation on this from either the US or the Indian government. CNBC TV 18 has learned that while negotiations have been intense and US is driving a hard bargain, an early trade deal with India will also give a political victory to Donald Trump. The president has been facing criticism for the disruption caused due to his tariff policies, and the trade deal with India will be the first to give America significant concessions and market access. India has offered zero duties on all goods, including automobiles and auto components, but wants to keep agriculture and dairy out of the trade deal. However, the US wants a bigger deal covering market access for US agriculture and dairy products. India has already said no to import of genetically modified agricultural products, and it remains to be seen whether India will give US concessions in sensitive areas like agriculture and dairy. Sources say India has already conveyed to the United States that if the objective of reciprocal tariffs was to reduce the $45 billion trade deficit, then that would anyway be done by more energy purchases from the US. Official CNBC TV 18 spoke to said that India is the only country that has signed a clear terms of reference for a trade deal with the US, and there have been extensive negotiations between officials of both countries. India's top trade negotiator, Rajesh Agarwal, is also in the US for talks to resolve any pending differences. Hopefully, we will see an announcement on an early trade deal before the 9th of July and the signing of a larger trade deal when Donald Trump visits India later this year.
Right, Parikshit. Many thanks for those details. Now, ratings agency Moodys says India is better positioned than many other emerging economies to deal with US tariffs and trade disruptions. Moodys said India's robust internal growth drivers, along with a sizable domestic economy and a low dependence on goods trade, can help it withstand the tariffs and the related disruptions. Moodys also sees room for rate cuts. The rating agency says easing inflation offers the potential for interest rate cuts to further support growth. Moving on to IPO corner, logistics firm Shiprocket is gearing up for its market debut. Sources have said that the company has filed confidential papers with market regulator SEBI. Shiprocket has plans to raise 2,000 to 2,500 crore rupees from its public issue. The IPO will also include a fresh sale of shares worth 1,000 to 1,200 crore rupees. Walmart-owned PhonePay is also gearing up to go public. The top brass at the fintech company spoke exclusively to CNBC TV 18 and said this was the right time and India was the right market for the company to launch its initial public offer. PhonePay is also planning more diversification and is hoping to achieve profitability in the years to come.
I think directionally too, I think the company's at a stage where I feel like the core payments business, consumer and merchant combined, is at a stage of maturity and market leadership where we should, hopefully from here, remain sort of very, very stable and hopefully quite profitable in years to come. Conditioned well enough to say without setting any targets or goals. I think it's the right time. I think the business is in a good place, the org is in a good place, the sector is in a good place. Payments is still growing very rapidly. So if you're a market leader in a growth sector, I think it's a good time.
So, Rahul, did the two of you sit and have a conversation about it makes sense to do it now? This is the right time, this is the moment, and we should go all in?
We did have a conversation. I think, like Sameer mentioned, just given the current state of the org and the business, specifically on the core offering that is payments, given how exciting financial services and payments in India is, and the fact that we also have a few new businesses that we are diversifying into, we felt that this is the right time where the core business on the path to profitability, being able to actually nurture new businesses, is the right time to take PhonePay to the public markets.
To pay a hefty bill of 8,000 crore rupees to reverse flip and move back to India, I would imagine had its roots in this eventual decision, right?
Of course.
I think directionally, if the right answer for a business like ours is to list, then this is the right market. I mean, I think we're very proud of the fact that we are a household name or brand in the country today. It doesn't make sense to list anywhere else. So I think the reverse flipping was a precursor towards an eventual listing someday.
In terms of the opportunity to grow, what's the kind of headroom for growth that you see in each of these businesses? They're nascent today. What could they look like 5 years on?
We pride ourselves as is a platform that can be an intelligent distributor.
Okay.
So we've always tried to stay away from being a manufacturer as far as possible, but partner with the ecosystem in terms of being an intelligent distributor, which means let's not just be another lead generation platform,
right,
but let's be a platform that is clearly looking at what kind of problems can be solved by a particular partner for which kind of users, and make sure that we are able to actually surface those products at the right price to those consumers, so that we are actually value additive to both.
On that note, it is time for us to head into a short break. But coming up next, Supreme Court grants interim bail to Professor Ali Khan, who was arrested for a social media post on Operation Sindoor, but terms his post dog whistling and orders an SIT probe into the matter. Welcome back. You're still with us on Business 360. The Supreme Court granted interim bail to Ashok University Professor Ali Khan Mahmoodabad, who was arrested for a social media post on Operation Sindoor. However, the Apex Court termed his post as dog whistling and ordered a special investigation team to probe the matter. Ashmit Kumar joins us now with the details. Ashmit, take us through what the top court said.
Well, to begin with, Professor Mahmoodabad of the Ashok University, he made a comment post-Operation Sindoor on social media where he essentially questioned the efficacy of Operation Sindoor, questioned the impact that it was having on people living in border areas, families of the armed personnel, also questioned, in fact, brought in the question of attack on minorities. And these were questions that were part of his post, his social media post, and that's the reason why an FIR was registered. He was arrested. Now, the Supreme Court, as of today, there was a brief hearing. Kapil Sibal argued for the professor. And importantly, the Supreme Court at this point has seen it fit to grant interim relief in the form of bail. But that comes at a cost. The Supreme Court was extremely unhappy with the post that was put out in light of Operation Sindoor. In fact, the Supreme Court has said that it sees no ground for quashing or staying the investigations in any shape or form. Far from that, the Supreme Court has now has directed for an SIT to be constituted, which will in fact probe these questions that have been raised against Professor Mahmoodabad. In fact, the Supreme Court also questioned the timing of it all, saying that, is this the correct time to be gaining popularity? That's the word used. In fact, the Supreme Court went on to say that this was extremely, very unfortunate that such comments were made, that the language used in this post is very specifically designed to insult, to humiliate, that this is not the time that there should be a sense of duty, especially in a professor at Ashoka University, and then going on to say that this is something that perhaps was very ill-timed given the context of it all, and that Professor Mahmoodabad should have been more sensitive, should have been more kind to the other sentiments at this time. On the back of all of this, the Supreme Court seeing it fit to grant interim relief, but the investigation continues, and also the hearing in the highest court continues as well. The hearing is scheduled next week.
All right, Ashmit, thank you so much for those details. Now, moving on, the Maharashtra government has issued its long-awaited general resolution formalizing its policy for app-based transport aggregators. The new rules range from regulating surge pricing to imposing fines on drivers for cancellations. Santya Gora joins us now with the details. Santya, take us through the new rules.
See, it is a big news, especially for app-based cab users in Maharashtra. The state cabinet on Tuesday approved the long-awaited aggregators policy, and here's what it means for all of us. So fare calculation is one of the key aspects of the policy here. The government says fares must align with public transport, auto and taxi rates. Surge pricing and discounts have been capped. Discounts at a maximum of 25%, and surge pricing cannot exceed 1.5 times the base fare. The minimum fare must cover distance of at least 3 kilometers. Now, cancellation penalties are a key feature of the policy as well. If a driver cancels a ride, the user will be refunded 10% of the fare or 100 rupees, whichever is lower. If a passenger cancels without a reason, they will also be fined 5% of the fare or 50% rupees, whichever is lower. The government has also addressed carpooling in this policy. Drivers can accept a maximum of only 14 carpool rides per week. To access this feature, users must submit proof of their office and residence addresses. For enhanced women's safety, women passengers will have the option of women-only carpool rides. The GR also mandates certain requirements for aggregators. They must have a registered office in Maharashtra and ensure GPS tracking of cabs, emergency contacts, and thorough background checks on drivers. Training and insurance are compulsory for the drivers, and the aggregators will have to provide insurance cover to both driver and passenger. Drivers must earn at least 80% of the fare. The policy also mandates a gradual transition to electric vehicles and the establishment of a robust complaint redressal system. Most of these guidelines actually are already in place and are being followed by aggregators. While some points in the GR remain open-ended and a little unclear, the government claims that once officially implemented, the policy will further streamline operations and ensure compliance from both service providers and users.
All right, Sandhya, many thanks for those details. And before we wrap up, writer Banu Mushtaq has scripted history. The 77-year-old became the first Kannada author and the second Indian to win the prestigious International Booker Prize for a short story anthology named Heart Lamp. This is the first time that a short story collection has won the International Booker Prize. Heart Lamp features 12 short stories written between 1990 and 2023 and captures the hardships of Muslim women living in southern India. Heart Lamp was translated from Kannada to English by Deepa Basti, who will share the prize with Banu Mushtaq.
Heart Lamp.
If I may borrow a phrase from my own culture, this moment feels like 1,000 fire files lighting up a single sky, brief, brilliant, and utterly collective. To even stand among these extraordinary finalists is an honor to me. I will never forget, and I accept this great honor not as an individual, but as a voice raised in chorus with so many others.
And with that, it is a wrap on this edition of Business 360. More news and updates coming up on the other side. Stay tuned.